Hello and welcome to another episode of the AIA Kansas City's Legends and Leaders series. This series highlights architects and others that have helped shape our community. A lifetime resident of Kansas City, Kansas, Carol Marinovich is a model of local leadership in our community. Born in the Strawberry Hills neighborhood, Carol was elected to the Kansas City Council in 1989, becoming the first woman to be elected to this council's history. She served on the council for 6 years, focusing on regulating adult entertainment, improving housing opportunities, and bolstering the economy. Marinovich ran for mayor of Kansas City, Kansas against 12 other candidates, winning the seat in 1995. For the first 2 years of her mayorship, Carol lobbied Topeka for consolidation of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas governments. Members of the community voted for a measure added to the ballot in 1997 to consolidate the two governments, which went into effect in October of that year. Marinovich was voted the first mayor and CEO of the Unified Government, a position she held until 2005. Under her leadership, Kansas City, Kansas and Wyandotte County experienced an improved relationship with the state government, neighborhood revitalization, and economic growth. The Kansas Speedway and Legends development serve as examples of key achievements during her tenure. Carol received her Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education from St. Mary's College in 1972, and her Master's of Science in Education in 1980, and Administration Certificate in 1981 from the University of Kansas. Prior to a political career, she worked as an educator in the United States School District number 500 from 1972 to 1982, and as a special education coordinator from 1982 to 1985. Let's meet Carol.
Hello and welcome to another version of AIA Kansas City's Legends and Leaders program. Today we're interviewing Mayor Carol Marinovich. Mayor Marinovich was a huge figure in Kansas City during the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, and managed to get the unified government of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas put together, and the Legends and all of the NASCAR was under her jurisdiction while she was mayor. It was quite a significant change. I think it sort of made a substantial difference in Kansas City, Kansas. So we wanted to, that's exactly what we're looking for in our Legends and Leaders. So we wanted to have Carol come and talk to us about how and why she did all of that and what motivated her to do it. So welcome, Carol. We're so happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and it's been a little while since you did all that, so you've had plenty of time to reflect.
I've been out of office for 20 years.
That's right. Such an important time for Kansas City, Kansas. They completely changed who they were.
Well, we needed to. You know, when I was first elected, my chief of staff and I had a discussion about the community where I was born and lived my entire life. Was it dying or was it dead? I mean, we were really in dire straits. And I knew the only opportunity we had was to grow the community.
Well, and you took it in a whole new direction. So instead of just an incremental small change, it was a large, significant change.
Well, it was an opportunity that, needless to say, when I was first elected in '95, I didn't think of, a speedway was going to really change and open up a whole corridor for us. It was just an opportunity that came along, and we decided to take that risk.
Well, and it was very amazing to the rest of the city, too. I was in Kansas City, Missouri at the time, and everybody was watching this unfold and saying, nah, they can't get that done. And then you get it done.
Well, everyone kind of put their money on Casey Moe because it was the two Kansas cities who were invited to Daytona to make a pitch. And I think most folks thought Casey Moe would win the pitch. And wow. I knew like 2 or 3 hours after we made the pitch, they called me at the hotel, and I knew before I came home that we had won the exclusive negotiations.
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah, it really was. And you know, what we did when we did the development, we just really thought the Speedway could be that spark to ignite interest in other development in the area. But what we also had done was we'd learned from the Woodlands. We had a pari-mutuel facility called the Woodlands, and everyone in the community thought, oh, that's going to open up the I-435 corridor. There's going to be all this development that happened. Nothing happened. In fact, speculators purchased the ground and no development occurred. So we really learned from the Woodlands, so that when we had to go back to the Kansas legislature for additional legislation for the Speedway, we added that acreage that is now the Village West and Legends area, because what we realized was control of the ground was important. We knew what we wanted to see happen next to the Speedway, and the only way we could ensure that not only it would happen, but what we wanted to happen would occur was to control the ground. Wow. And so we as a government purchased all that acreage.
It was bold, it was brilliant, and it's been successful.
It had some moments where you're going like, oh, of anxiety, but you know, it was all worth the anxiety.
It really is, and it's benefited the whole city.
Well, I don't know where we would be today, because before we did the development out west, I had sat through, you know, many budget sessions, and the only way we could have additional revenues come into the community was to raise the mill levy, the taxes, because we didn't have any sales tax for the most part coming into the community. So we knew we needed to diversify our tax base and grow our tax base, and that's exactly what it's done, and it's helped other parts of the community as a result.
Well, so let's go back to the beginning. You originally were a teacher and then made a transition to civic leadership, to the political side of things. Why don't you tell us, first of all, why you were a teacher and then how that informed you as a political leader?
Okay, well, I decided in the 4th grade to become a teacher. I attended Catholic school, and back then it was predominantly nuns who taught you, and you know, we're talking in the 50s, and as a girl I was given a few options as a career. I could be a nurse, I could be a housewife. That meant you only graduated from high school and didn't go on to college. I could be a nun, or I could be a teacher. I had ruled out nursing because I have a weak stomach, and I thought that would not be the career for me. My mother grew up during the Depression, and I was the only girl in the family, and she only had an 8th grade education, but loved school, and she wanted more for me. So from the time, I don't remember a time where my mom didn't talk about when I graduated from college, not if. And I can still see the look on her face the day I graduated. Kind of still chokes me up. And then I decided not to be a nun because I had a crush on a boy in the 4th grade, and he left a candy bar on my desk, so I thought that left out the nun. So that only left one career, a teacher. So in the 4th grade, I decided to become a teacher and didn't waver from that. And I loved education. I mean, that was probably even a more important job than being mayor. I mean, when you can see a light go off in a child's mind and the difference you can make in children's lives. And I think that's one reason why, when I retired, I went back to education, teaching American government and political science at Donnelly. And so I decided then, I was with the Kansas City, Kansas School District for 23 years. And I decided to run for city council because people should learn, don't make a woman angry. And I was upset about an issue in my neighborhood, and I knew my neighbors, I lived on Strawberry Hill at the time, I knew my neighbors shared that concern. And so I called, we didn't have an organized neighborhood group, but I called the neighborhood together. I talked to our city council person at the time and found out how you got on the agenda, because I never went to a city council meeting in my life. I always voted, because my grandpa is an immigrant. You have a duty and responsibility to vote and know who and what you're voting for and why. So that was drilled into me as a child, but I wasn't involved in politics at all. And so we went to the city council meeting over the issue. It was very obvious they were giving us our 5 minutes and sending us on our way. So the neighborhood wasn't very happy when we left. So I complained to friends, and I have wonderful friends, but they weren't very sympathetic. They said, do something about it. Your councilman's running for re-election, run against him. I complained, they'd say, run against him, so I did. I didn't know how to run a campaign. My campaign manager was the wife of a cousin, because I couldn't find anyone, because there hadn't been a woman elected in Kansas City politics at that time. And so I wasn't supposed to make it through the primary.
You were the first.
Yes, and so I won the primary and then was elected to the city council and was reelected 4 years later. In the middle of my second term, the idea of consolidation came up, and as a educator, because I was still working as with the Kansas City, Kansas School District at the time. I was on the council. You know, you always do your homework. And so I did a lot of research on consolidation, and even went to Columbus, Georgia, that had a consolidated government for about 10 years at that time, and met with elected and civic leaders there. And they all told me to a person, consolidation would not have happened in their community, in their opinion, without the strong support of the mayor. And I knew our current mayor said he supported it, but I really didn't think that he was going to really get behind it. And then I've always lived in the older parts of this community, and with the school district, I was a coordinator, and so I traveled to all the schools, and so I saw the blight that was occurring and all the what needed to happen, revival that we needed in the older parts of our community, and thought, how do we grow a community if we aren't taking care of what we already have? And so I thought we really need to work on revitalization too. So in '95, I ran for mayor on those two issues, consolidation and revitalization of the older parts of the community.
What a solid platform. You didn't know that on top of that, you'd get into completely changing over the face of Kansas City, Kansas, but yeah.
That wasn't on the horizon. We were looking at how could we find more money to eliminate blight by taking down structures that were beyond repair in neighborhoods that were, yes. And so, you know, but I also knew as mayor, you know, you have 6 council people, and it really requires a team effort. One person can't do it alone. You need those partnerships. And so one of the first things I did as mayor when I was elected is I had a planning session with the city council members and the city administrator. And I had the department heads sit in. But I thought we as an elected body had to get on the same page. And so revitalization really came out as a group as our #1 priority. Because I thought it was important to also let the staff know we mean it when we're talking about it. And so I moved Livable Neighborhoods, which is a neighborhood organizing group. It was one person department. Moved it to my office suite so that it told not just the people in my community that we mean it when we're talking about revitalization and the importance of our older neighborhoods, but also told the staff that too. Because many of them were there for years before I was elected mayor, and they were going to be there for years probably after I left. So I didn't want any of them to think this too shall pass. So we got some things done on a limited amount of money. And so, you know, we kept thinking we need to grow our tax base. And so then the idea of the Speedway came about, and met with the Speedway people the day consolidation was on the ballot. And so I was very candid with them and said, #1, if I'm a little distracted, I'm really worried about the vote today, about what's voter turnout, and told them about what was happening at the ballots. And I also told them, I don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about a Speedway. So I can't say yes or no. And so the county city administrator and I and one of the commissioners went to Fontana, California for the opening of a Speedway there. And when I saw thousands of people coming to an area, and they were all leaving with bags of things that they had purchased even. Coming back from there, the administrator looked at me and goes, well, Mayor, what should we do? And I go, let's go for it. And we never looked back.
For the procession of you all going to present or to win the award or something, it was a big news item at the time, and it has made a big difference to the city.
Well, what I was really worried about when we were competing against Kansas City, Missouri, is that if we didn't win the exclusive negotiations, the Kansas City Star headline would be KCK loses out to KC-Mo. And what do I do with my constituency? Because even if they didn't know what the Speedway was that we lost, how do I build that morale back up? And that was my biggest concern then.
That was my biggest concern. So building morale was all part of the plan all along, was trying to get a better attitude about what it was like to live there.
Well, yes, especially from young kids. They had to leave to shop. They had to leave if they wanted to go to the movies. You know, we had a few restaurants, but not that many. So they'd tend to go other places for dinner and things. And so when you have to leave your community for everything, why would you want to stay there? And that's what I heard from them. And so I was hoping in time that it would lead to maybe some of them wanting to take a leadership role and stick around in the community.
Well, it makes me wonder, part of it was your own interest in your neighborhood and because you'd grown up there. But how did you take your teaching, the lessons in school, to this higher level of public education?
I read a lot. You know, when I was on the city council, I worked on a housing development called Palo Vista. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a upscale housing just south of 7th and Central. The advice I was given at the time is don't do it. You'll end up with egg on your face and it'll be your political demise because no one's going to buy housing east of 635. But I had been reading a lot and saw what other older urban areas were doing on replacing blight with something new, and thought, if they can do it, so can we. And I thought the site for Palo Vista, because it overlooks the Kaw River, you have a beautiful view and everything, it was the ideal place to start. And as a result of that, and it was successful, there were other areas that were developed.
Would you tell a young person that was thinking to, follow in your footsteps, that was thinking of becoming a civic leader or getting involved in Kansas City, Kansas, what would you advise them to be doing?
Well, number one, things are different today. Watch what you put on social media, number one, because that could come back to haunt you. I would say also, get engaged in your community. Know the area that you want to represent. Get engaged, be it in a neighborhood group. There are different boards and commissions that local governments have. Get engaged and build that network. Many communities like ours has a program called Leadership 2000. Get involved with Leadership 2000, be in one of those classes. That helped me a lot. I was in the first class of Leadership 2000, and it really helped me learn about myself and more about the community, because you tend to get isolated in your own little neighborhood sometimes.
Also, a lot of our viewership, of course, are architects, and I'm wondering what kind of role you saw architects in all of this. What role did they play in?
I think important, especially when we were creating legends. I had looked around, and in the metro area, I saw one mall that's in southern Johnson County, and I kept saying, that's what I don't want. It's very upscale, but to me, it's just concrete and cement, parking lot. To me, it's like any other mall, just with some nicer shops. And so I had looked like in Phoenix, and I know we don't have the same weather as Phoenix, but I saw this one by where my niece lives in Biltmore, and the walkway was in between the stores, and there were nice trees, and so I really insisted with Legends that it didn't look concrete looking. And so I remember when Nebraska Furniture Mart was being developed, and the administrator did all the negotiations, but he'd come to me, and I would say, well, this is how far we can go and that kind of thing, but he goes, that they don't want to spend as much money on all the trees and things in the parking lot. And I said, and he goes, it's going to have to come from you. They won't believe me. So we got on a call with Daytona, and I said, I won't give on this. You're going to have a huge parking lot, and I don't want people just to notice the concrete. So if you drive through Legends, you see a lot of trees, shrubbery, flowers that give it a better ambiance. And that's what I wanted in that area.
And so it made a difference in how...
Oh, architecturally, it really made a difference, and Red Development delivered to me what they said they would deliver, architecturally.
Well, we really do appreciate your time today. That, I think, concludes our latest version of Legends and Leaders. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you all for joining us today in Legends and Leaders.